Design Principles for a Digital Reference System in GTD. I'm Hynne Petersen, and this is a recording of a presentation held at the Danish GTD Meetup in March in 2021. The agenda for this presentation is that we just need to define what we're talking about, and then you need to think before you create a reference system. What can a good reference system help you? How can it help you? And how will a bad system impact you? Then you need to think about yourself, your future system, and I'm also going to talk about the life cycles of a digital reference system. So what are we talking about? We're of course talking about the organized step, and when you capture something, you collect it and then have the clarify step where you find out that it's a reference material, and you need to organize it in your reference system. After you have organized it, you have the possibility in the review step to review some items, or in the engage step you need to find your item again if that's needed. So before you start creating a digital reference system, you need to think. And if you have a good reference system, the capture step will attract you, because then you know that you're able to store your ideas, thoughts, all the material. And when we come to the engage step, that will also attract you, because you're able to find your things again. If you have a bad reference system, then why should you capture? Because you don't know where to store your ideas. So the stuff accumulate in the inbox, and it's very difficult to get to inbox 0. And when you come to the engage step, then you cannot find your things, so it's difficult to work with your stuff. So what kind of person are you? Are you a tech nerd, or really like the computer and your systems, or do you just want to have a reference system that's easy to use? Because usually it's two different systems you want to try to build, and therefore you need to figure out what kind of person are you. Are you an advanced user? Do you need a very simple solution, or do you like it to be complex and able to use automation? So you have your current system, and you need to figure out what is the hard landscape. Do you have a computer? Is it Windows, Mac? What kind of system it is? Do you have a phone? What kind of phone? And your current situation, is it paper-based? Is it all digital, or a mix of it. And what is your future vision for your system? Are you going completely paperless, or do you want to switch for your future system? That you need to have figured out before you start planning. And when you're going to find a system, some of the first things you need to figure out is it possible to get your data out of the system again? If it's a system like Evernote, where it's very easy to get stuff and data into the system and very difficult to get it out again, then you need to think again and figure out, is this the right system for me? You also need to figure out the software and hardware. Are there any end-of-life notifications? Is it possible to still use the software and hardware in the few years to come? You're not able to look very far into the future, but if it's if your hardware is old, then you probably need to figure out, is it possible to use that software and hardware for my reference system. Then you can have quite an old system, but you can also find some software where you are going to be the first mover. So are you willing and have you the capacity to be the first mover? Or do you just need a proven solution where you have a community around the solution, and hopefully a GTD community that are able to help, and you're able to find guidelines and setup guides to help you. And some suppliers of software are very good at supporting you, have a good support level, and some are very you're on your own kind of company. And all this you need to take into account before you choose a system. When you then think about capture, then you want the capture process into your system to be as simple as possible. It needs to attract you and not repel you. So try to find a system that supports a very simple way of getting information into your reference system. And what are the input sources in your system? Is it email? Is it paper you need to scan, or is it files? What are the input sources? You also need to think about integration. Are you able to integrate it into your list manager, or do you able to create links, or is it not possible to have any integration at all? And how easy is your inboxes integrated into your system? Are there any files that you're able to share or need to share, or do you need somebody else to cooperate when the files are in the system? Then you have all the system, all the stuff in your system, and you of course need to find them again. And how you're going to do that? Are you a person that rely on search? Do you need a folder structure to support you, or do you need tags to help you? What are the solution you think about able to support? And how are you going to access the system? Is it a desktop solution only, or should it also be accessible from a mobile phone or an app or web-based? And is it a system that can be accessed from a Windows or a Mac's environment, or both? So when you structure your data, what we have seen from quite a lot of people is, if you take the Horizon 2 areas and focus on accountability and use that structure as a high level structure for your reference system, then you are in a good place. And before you're able to choose your system, you need to figure out what kind of data are you going to store. Is it small bookmark links, or is it huge video files? A system that can handle the bookmarks files very easily is very seldom good at handling large video files. And of course you have document types of like documents or pictures that are like between the bookmark and the video files. So you need to think about what you're going to store. And you need to have some rules of where you store things and what you store before you have created the system, so you know your rules around your systems. And when you have made the rules, you don't need to think in every time you have something you need to store. You have thought of it, and when you have a rule, it's also much easier to automate. When you have a lot of stuff in your system, then what kind of formats are they? Are you able to save something, and then the year passes and you're trying to figure out, are you able to read things again? So what are you going to store? Do you need special software to read it? Is it in a format where you're able to read it again, or do you need some conversion after you have stored it? You also need to figure out your storage. Is it going to be in local on your computer, or do you want to use some cloud storage? And a very good idea is to have an item in your list manager to evaluate and review these formats in your reference system on a yearly basis. So if something changes, you are able to convert, and much better than find out 5 years from now that the things you've stored and relied on, you're not able to read again. When we look at the system cost, also different models you need to look into to figure out what is the real cost of the system. Some can be expensive upfront with a one-time fee, and some systems have a yearly fee. And you need to figure out if something looks expensive. It could be if you look some years ahead, it's a cheaper solution to choose a one-time fee over a maintenance fee. You also need to figure out you have all this data that you have saved that you rely on, and of course a backup solution is needed, so your data is safe. Having years of data on your system and losing that without a backup or backup that you're able to also restore is really a bad situation to be in. So look into, before you need it, what backup solution either for your reference system. And also look into security. How is your reference system secured? If you lose your phone, do you lose access to your system, or do you risk hackers to get access to your system, or is it easy to hack your reference system and jeopardize of some information you don't want anybody else to read? And for some people, automation is very welcome and needed. So what are the possibilities of using automation with your reference system? But be careful not just to set up some automation and just fill your reference system with stuff. Really remember to clarify before you enter information into your reference system. It can be a really big help, but you need to use automation in the right way. So we need to start simple with your system and think that it will have some iterations and life cycles, that you need a system for your practice, GTD practice right now, looking some years into the future, but things will change. Changes to the family, changes to job, or a lot of changes that will need changes to your reference system. You're also on a GTD journey and get a better understanding of GTD, and you'll change behavior that will also affect how your reference system needs to be set up or running. And of course, changes in technology will put a pressure on what is possible and what needs to change. And things gets faster and faster, and the generation in technology gets shorter and shorter. So you need to be able to do several iterations and life cycles. And when you do that, you start the phase with thinking what you want and need. Then you build it, and then you test it. And during the test phase of using the system, you figure out what could be improved. So when you have the next life cycle, you are getting smarter, your requirements have changed, and now when thinking about that, you're able to build a new version of your system and then test that. So I really would think it would be a good idea to add to your yearly review review of your reference system. How pleased are you with it? What do you need to change? And going back 5 or 10 years, your reference system is probably much it's different from now, and going 2, 3, 5 years into the future, you probably also need a different solution. So thank you, and as always, what is your next action?